In this video, we're gonna break down everything that you guys need to know for the NASM push and pull assessments, not only what to look for, but what it actually might mean. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Coach Joe Drake with the Axiom Fitness Academy, and I actually really like the pushing and pulling assessments, maybe even more so than a lot of other formal assessments because of the experience for new clients when they come in. The downside of some assessments is they can be so formal that it might create an awkward first experience, especially if you input that in their first session. But the push and the pull assessment truly is just a pushing and pulling exercise. So the thing that I love about it is you can really just get an opportunity to get clients coaching, doing the exercises they might really do in the gym, and then you get to gain just a little bit of additional information about it. So as we talk about setup for your push and pull assessment, a couple easy things. First off, your checkpoints, the things that you're looking for with the pushing exercise and the pulling exercise, we're gonna make your life easier. They're the same, right? So you really just have to memorize those set of kinetic chain checkpoints, and it's gonna end up being the same overactive and underactive potential muscles. But what we wanna do, whether it's a band or a cable, I like bands because as you can see, we're outside, you can take them with you anywhere, set your assessment up wherever you want, is you wanna just have it somewhere probably like between chest and belly button height. Just so that we make sure that as we are pulling and we're pushing, we're not doing it at an extreme angle because that is gonna throw off the mechanics of the exercise. So for you guys, I'm gonna start out with the push assessment. And what you find here, it's pretty common issues for a lot of people. A lot of it ends up being relative to what's going on at the shoulders. And then our other major kinetic chain checkpoint is really gonna be here, this LPHC. All right, now the great thing, you guys will see some of the overactive and underactive muscles on the video on the screen. They're gonna be the same ones for the most part that you find with the overhead squat assessment, all right? And they'll actually be inside that same chart. We'll give you guys links to these videos here in the description so you guys know where to go. But first thing, if we're setting up for our push assessment, all right, best thing you can do, try not to overcoach everything right away. You wanna see how they naturally move. And then you get an opportunity just to tweak a few things, right? The first time you see them do something doesn't automatically mean that something's broken, that there's an overactive, underactive muscle. They just might not know how to do it. So give them a chance to do it first. So we wanna make sure we set someone up with a split stance, and we do wanna keep that back heel down. This is a little different for me, like from a normal exercise standpoint, I might like that back heel up because it engages the core, but just for the sake of our kinetic chain checkpoints, having that back heel down, it's gonna give me some information initially as we work up the body about what's going on here at the LPHC. So if I have someone doing this with me, I'm like, hey, let's just set you up in a split stance, right? A little space between our front and back foot. Just want those hands right outside of your chest and shoulders, and I just want you to push those hands right out in front, and then nice and controlled back. And that's probably all the coaching I'm gonna give them in their first couple reps, and then just see how it goes, moving nice and slow. And the major angle you wanna look from here is really gonna be what you guys see, this lateral view. As a coach, I might wanna move around and see front to back, but our major checkpoints are gonna be from the side. All right, so if we keep that heel down, the first thing we're looking for is what we call like an excessive curvature of that LPHC. All right, now this might, if you guys have watched our video on the overhead squat, this should hopefully ring a bell because this is one of the same checkpoints for your overhead squat. And again, the easy thing is it's the same overactive and underactive muscles, but it's not uncommon. You might see someone pressing those bands out and just having this kind of excessive arch in that low back. There's a couple of things that could be happening here. Overactive muscle-wise, we could have something pulling our pelvis down. That's all you want to think about. What would be either pulling me out of position if it's overactive, right? And for the most part, if you think bottom of the pelvis here, that could be overactivity in our hip flexors and our quads, pulling down on the pelvis. It could also be overactivity in those lumbar extensors, some of those low back muscles. So those are your likely overactive, and the most likely underactive, which I find tends to be most common here too, is the muscles that actually help keep us in a better position, right? So if you see that big arch in the low back and the ribs coming out, that could be an indication that some of our core musculature, our abdominals, especially deep core, that helps to control that position of my ribs to my pelvis may not be firing, as well as the glutes, right? So it's just kind of this opposition relationship. You're not gonna know all of that inside the assessment, but you might take some notes and look for that in some later movements. The other thing to not miss out on here is, again, this is one that you might be able to cue them out of. So if you can cue them out of it, then I'm less worried about it being overactive and underactive, meaning that if someone's here and they're pressing out and you can say, hey, you know what, try to push those ribs back in. Think about kind of crunching forward a little bit, and they can fix that position and then all of a sudden accomplish it. To me, now they didn't know how to do the exercise, and they took some coaching cues, which again is great because, hey, maybe they haven't signed up to train with you yet, so it's a great first experience. That's your first one, LPHC, and I'm not gonna go through, it's literally the same thing with our pulling assessment. That's our first kinetic chain checkpoint. Only difference you can find with our pulling assessment as we work our way up is you can do the pulling assessment from an even stance. You don't necessarily need to do it from a split stance. Truthfully, you can perform it either way, and it should have a similar impact, but you'll be looking for the same thing. Can they maintain a neutral pelvis, or do they arch that low back? And it's the same underactive and overactive muscle. So that first one, LPHC. Second checkpoint, as we move our way up, right? We kind of start from the ground up with assessments. Next area we're gonna look at is actually gonna be our shoulder blades, all right? So I'll show you guys from the pushing first, because again, this is a common one for people in the gym, is a lack of control of where those shoulder blades go during pushing and pulling exercises. So what you're looking for on this one is as someone pushes those hands forward, do you see them kind of shrug up, right? This elevation of the shoulder blades. And again, have them do it for a couple reps. My first thing I'm gonna try to do, try to cue them out of it. Say, hey, try to think about bringing those shoulder blades down. Create some space between your ears and shoulders. And if they can do it, then maybe it was just a cueing issue. But it could be overactivity, could be some underactivity going on there as well. And the easy thing here is just problem solving. If you think about anatomy, what could be pulling up on those shoulder blades? Two primary areas. One, we could have some overactivity in the upper traps. Not uncommon. A lot of people carry a lot of tension in the neck and the shoulders, so we could have some overactivity, and that's bringing it up. The other muscle for the overactive is potentially our levator scapulae, and that one attaches just to the top border of your shoulder blade and then the base of your head. So if you think about where it starts and ends, it makes sense if we have overactivity there, it's gonna wanna make those shoulder blades go up. I find the best one here for most people is focusing on the underactive muscle, and all you gotta think about is what depresses those shoulder blades, and it's gonna be your lower traps. So some of that could be some cueing, there could be some other exercises you do, but we wanna make sure that as they're pushing, those shoulder blades don't pop up. And just to relate it to you guys real quick, because this is very common with pulling, same thing. As we're looking at that pulling exercise, do we see shoulders elevate up? That could be two things. It could be the same overactive and underactive, or especially with rowing exercises, not a lot of people know that to engage the lats, you really want this extension at the shoulder. And if you want better extension at the shoulder, you don't want to pull that hand high. You want to pull your hand kind of low, almost like you're coming to your hips or your ribs. So that's a great one, especially first day. Love that for people to be able to hone in on their technique by just learning how to row, because a lot of people will bring it a little bit more towards the chest. And our third and final checkpoint that we're looking for from that lateral view during our pushing and pulling assessment, after we've looked at what's going on with the shoulder blades, is the next thing, just looking at the head and the neck, right? We're kind of in this turtleneck, like, forward position society for all the things that we do. And so it shows up oftentimes when we're doing pushing and pulling exercises. So same idea. Maybe we might not move in the shoulders, but as someone pushes out, you kind of see that chin going forward. And same thing, probably even more common I find in the pulling, is that if we have upper overactivity in some of those other muscles, that in order to get more position here, they'll almost try to reach that chin out in front. Now, again, cueing could work here, and I really like, if you guys have seen my man Rick Ritchie's videos here on YouTube working for NASM, I like you smelled something sour like an orange, and you're like, you bring that chin back in. That could be activating some muscles to offset it, or it could be some overactivity. All right, similar, our levator scapulae that came up in our last one with our shoulders elevating, that one does attach in a way that as we pull those elbows in towards our row, it could result in this tilting forward of the head. And the other area is also our sternocleidomastoid. It's a mouthful, but sternocleidomastoid, and that one has two attachments, comes back here, right? Comes down and attaches to our sternum, right here, and also to this clavicle. So sternocleidomastoid, if that one has some overactivity, it could also be promoting that head forward position. And your underactive potential muscles here are gonna be your deep cervical flexors of the neck. I find with this one, great one you can do maybe a little bit of lacrosse ball on the traps prior to a pushing and pulling day, and then focus on really engaging those lower traps to work on that shoulder blade position. But not an uncommon one with our pulling and our pushing exercise to see either those shoulders pop up or that head come out. So if you guys are studying for your NASM exam, hopefully this video will help you guys in the process, bring it to life a little bit. And then my main takeaway is like, this is a great assessment to do with clients because you do get some good information. You get the opportunity to coach them, which is a great way to build value and see how they move inside the gym. And I think these are ones that are gonna carry you on into the next phase of your journey, which is actually training clients. So if you guys like this video, don't forget, like the video, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll continue to put out great content to not only help you guys on your study journey, but also as you guys get to that next phase of training. See you guys in the next video.